This is Research Like a Pro, Episode 20, How to Become Accredited. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, a Genealogist Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Research Like a Pro today. Hi, Diana. How's it going?
It's going great. Glad to be here today.
Today, our episode is going to be about how to become accredited. But before we talk about that, I have a review to read from Jenny Nan. She says, Diana and Nicole make the concepts very understandable and give us hope that we can make the leap from searching to researching. Thanks for the review, Nan. And we encourage everybody to leave a review. And if you want to ask a question, then we can answer the question here on the podcast. So thank you guys for all of your reviews. We really appreciate it. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And today is Cyber Monday. So it's the last day of our sale on the Research Like a Pro eCourse for the super deep discount, which is $69. And it's normally $125, so it's 45% off. $56 off. And then tomorrow it goes up $10. So it'll still be on sale until Thursday at $79. So we hope that you guys purchase the eCourse if you've been thinking about researching like a pro and going through the videos and the quizzes with Diana and I. And we also have the office hours questions every month so that you can get some additional help beyond just the video content and the articles and things. So look into the eCourse if you've been interested in it. And also the book will be half off. The Kindle version is $4.99 during the sale.
I hope everyone enjoyed our interview last week with Sherry Hessick, who was part of our very first Research Like a Pro study group. And I wanted to just do a quick little announcement about if you want to be part of the study group, how you can do that. We have registration opening up in February of 2019 for the next study group, which starts in March of 2019. And if you want to get advance notice and information about that, you can join our special study group eCourse subscription list, and that's on the website. But what if you want to just do the same program at your own pace and you don't want to be part of the formal study group or can't commit to being there every other week with us? Then that's why we created the eCourse. And you might have heard Sherry talking about how much she enjoyed the feedback from everyone. Well, be assured that with the eCourse, you can still get feedback through using our private Facebook groups. So just wanted to kind of clarify how those two things work because they are two separate programs. So hopefully there's one of those that will fit everyone's needs.
All right, so for today, we're going to be talking about accreditation and how to become accredited because we know that a lot of listeners want to pursue accreditation to become an accredited genealogy professional through ICAPGen, which is the International Commission for the Accreditation of Genealogists. So Diana went through accreditation, so I'm just going to ask her a bunch of questions today and kind of interview her about that. I have set a goal to become accredited within a certain region, but it's taking me a lot of work. So it'll be good for me to talk to her about how to do it and get some ideas, and hopefully all of you will benefit as well. Okay, Diana, so if you were mentoring somebody who's working on accreditation like me, what would you tell them about how to know if you are ready to do the process of accreditation?
Well, first of all, you do have to have a certain amount of hours of experience. So if you've just started out doing genealogy and you don't have near enough hours, I believe it's 1,000 hours, which sounds like a lot. And so if you've been doing it for several years, you probably have that 1,000 hours. And if you haven't, then you should start keeping track of your hours so that you'll know when you get to that level. I think when they were first setting up the program, that was what they decided was a good ballpark for someone that's had enough research experience. So, and you'll have to have 500 hours in your region of accreditation. So accreditation, you get to choose a region, either an international region or a group of states in the United States.
So what was your region?
I did the Gulf South, which When I did it was 7 states: Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Texas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And the program has changed. And so now that region has gone away, and there are just 5 states in each region. So I believe that one was divided up a bit. So, Nicole, which one are you working on? Are you doing Mid-South?
Right. So that's the one I had originally chosen, Mid South region, and it included Kentucky, Missouri, North and South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. And it's the same for now, but I think starting next year, is that when it takes place that the changes go into effect?
Yes.
So starting next year, they are changing all of the regions so that each United States region will only have 5 states, which is good because then it makes it simpler to prepare. The one I'm going to do is Upper South, and that includes Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. And then Southeast is Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, and South Carolina. But you wanted one that would include Texas and Oklahoma, didn't you? So that would be the South Central with Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, and Louisiana. I wonder what you would have chosen if you would have done it now.
Well, I would have had to do a different project, because for your project, your 4-generation project, each of your people that you work on have to have lived in your region for at least some life event at some point in their life. And so all of my ancestors, they ended up in Texas. So I probably would have had to do the one with Texas, and I would have had to maybe change, my focus of some of my ancestors. So for me, it actually worked out really well that I could do Gulf South, because I did do Georgia, Alabama, and Texas for my states.
So we do a lot of our research in the United States, but obviously from the name, you can tell that ICAPGen is international. So the regions aren't just in the United States. There's regions for every part of the world, mostly, that you can do genealogy research in. There's Canada regions and European, South America, and all over. So you can take a look at those regions on the ICAPGen website and then choose one that works for you. So, like you said, you chose a region that had life events of your ancestors, but you can do anyone, right? Does it have to be in your family, or is there a requirement about who your 4-generation project is about?
No, I have a lot of friends who did projects for their neighbors, or if you're already working professionally, if you've done client projects. So it really is pretty wide open. So if I had wanted to do the southern region and Texas was no longer in it, then I could have just done a different family than the one I did, and maybe not even one of my own. So it's pretty broad, because ICAPGen recognizes that to get 4 generations, you may have to go outside of your own family.
Okay, and then I know there used to be a more strict requirement for the starting person's birth date, but they have recently changed it to be 80 years before the submission of the project. The starting person in the level 1 project can have been born within 80 years, it sounds like. But when you did it, what was the date? Wasn't it before 1890 or something?
I'm thinking before 1900. And so my starting individual was Dora Algie Royston, my great grandmother, who was born 1882. And so I really like that they are doing that rolling, 80 years, because, it is time to move into research in the 20th century. That's a valid research time to be searching. And so I'm glad that they've made it a little bit easier to get your 4 generations by moving it up.
Oh, okay. So it used to be 1900. So you had to have a person born before 1900 as your starting person. But now the change is that the person who's the starting person can be born before the last 80 years. So 80 years from the current date.
Right. So I could have started with my dad, I guess. He was born in 1927. So that would have worked. That's going to be nice, because my 4th generation ended up being born 1750 in Virginia. So I was going way back. I think this will help for candidates to be able to find 4 generations. Part of the problem with the prior to 1900 candidate was anybody who was maybe doing a project in the Western regions. That was difficult for them to find people that had been in that region for 4 generations. For instance, my family ended up in California, but they came from Texas. They didn't, there were not 4 generations in the West like California. And so that can be kind of difficult if you're having to start with somebody before 1900 and the place wasn't even settled that much before 1900. So I think that was part of the problem with some of the regions, difficulty in getting 4 generations.
So, how did you get started with your 4 generation project? Because it seems kind of intimidating to get started on such a big assignment.
Well, the first thing you have to do is actually pick your 4 generations. And a really important thing to know is it doesn't have to be like the straight male line or a straight female line. It can jump back and forth. So I started with Dora Algie Royston, and then I did her father, and then I did his father, and then the next father. But I could have gone, like father, mother, father, mother. It can be any combination of male or females going back on the lines. So that can be helpful to someone trying to figure out what they can do for the 4 generations. So first of all, I had to even figure out, who my 4 generations were going to be. And then, of course, I just started with the first. I chose the family that I did because I had already done a lot of research on them. They'd been one of my brick walls from the very beginning, and I had just worked so hard to find each generation that I felt like I had good research. And so that's how I chose them. But you don't have to do anything really difficult. You just have to show that you know how to do the steps for research. When I started my 1st generation project, I first of all just started putting everything into a research log that I already had found. And I had some pretty good things. And then I had to start writing a research report, which I had never done. So I had to learn how to do that. And I luckily was taking the ICAPGen study group for level 1. And so that study group really helped me a lot because I did a little draft and then got feedback on that and just picked it up pretty quick.
Okay, so you mentioned level 1. So I know that for accreditation, there are various levels. What does that mean and what are they?
You have to pass each level with a 90% to move on to the next. And level 1 has to do with that 4 generation project. So you submit your 4 generation project, which they recommend your report is between 25 and 40 pages. It cannot be over 40 pages. So that was tough for me getting it edited down to 40. And I was so excited when I created the PDF and it was exactly 40 because I just didn't know what else I could take out at that point. So you submit they call it your application, but it's your 4 generation project. And you also have to, submit, I can't think what it's called, but it is basically an application saying that you've got your 1,000 hours. And you don't have to write down how you got all 1,000 of those. It's on the honor system because honestly, if someone is trying to slide through, you're just not going to pass all the testing if you're not prepared and don't have your hours. So that's level 1, and you submit it, and then you wait on tenterhooks until you get notice that you passed or that you didn't pass. And it's not really a secret how they rate it. And I love that they have a grading rubric right on the website. So you can grade it yourself and have other people grade it and say, have I put everything in that I need to? So once you pass that, then you move on to a series of exams. And level 2 is a series of exams to test your knowledge of your region. So I did go south. So I had questions and things that were taken from my region, which was a totally different test than someone who was doing England or Denmark or, a different region. And then once you pass those exams with 90%, then you do level 3, which is going to be, when I did it, it was a 3-hour test when you did a complete project, research project. Now it's been changed to be a 4-hour project. And if you pass that, then you get to do an oral review. And if they feel like you are ready to be accredited, you are awarded your credential. So there's just a series of steps that you take. And the great thing about accreditation is if you don't pass something, you just go take it again. You try again. And you don't have to start the project over or start over at the beginning. You just redo what you didn't pass the first time.
That's great. It reminds me of a teacher at Brigham Young University back in the 1970s when my mother-in-law was there, who let all the students retake their exams if they failed. He just let them take it as many times as they wanted. And I think it was a different one. I don't know how he did that, but there was some way that he did it so that they could just keep trying and keep trying so that you don't ever just have to give up. You can just keep on trying and learning, and sometime you'll eventually get it.
Yeah, and sometimes we learn the very most from failing and having to really work hard to get to the next level or to pass can be where you really learn more than if you maybe hadn't had that experience. So I think it's really important to just keep that in mind that ICAPGen really does want to see everyone succeed, but there also is a level of competency that needs to be passed, or else the credential wouldn't mean anything if everyone was just passed without, some pretty good requirements.
So I have some questions for you about the exams because I think the 4th-generation report, I can wrap my mind around that. But what exactly is the written exam like in level 2 where you go in and they give you a test?
Level 2, like I said, it's going to be just on your region. And first of all, you can test either at the Family History Library if you're local or if you want to travel, or you can test anywhere near you. So ICAPGen will find a place that you can test. Like usually it's a library, and you'll have a proctor there that will time you and make sure that everything is being done right. And so you'll be just given your tests. It's on a flash drive and it will come up on the computer and it will have several questions and you will type in your answers. And when you're all done, it's timed. You have a proctor timing you at the end of your hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. Then the proctor will take the flash drive and then they copy that to, I think, make a backup copy, and then that goes to the raters. So it's all done electronically. It's all done on computers. So that part of the testing, you have to be able to use a computer and type in your answers. It's open book, so you can look up anything you want to on the internet, or you can use what we call research reference guides. And ICAPGen recommends that you create a guide for each of your states or areas of focus. And so that if you're getting a question about maybe the history of your area, you can really quickly turn to that section and find the answer. Or if you're given a question about a certain website, you can look it up online. So that's the beauty of it. We don't have to keep all of this information in our head because it's open book and you can look for the answer. But because it is timed, you can't spend a ton of time looking for the answer. You've got to really pretty much know your stuff.
Well, that's interesting. So I had forgotten that you told me that it was open book. And so you prepared all of your research guides for each of your states, like a research guide about how to do research in Texas. And then when you got to the test, you could look at that to answer questions about researching in Texas and in Florida and whatnot.
Absolutely. Because even though you've created your guides and you have researched and you know all this stuff, sometimes when you're, especially in a testing situation, your brain can go blank and you can't think. And so it's so helpful just to have your guide and you go verify your answer. And because you created your guide, you know where to find your information. And I took my guides both in paper form. I printed them off and put them in a notebook. And then I also took them on a flash drive because sometimes it was easier to just do a quick search on a document than to thumb through paper. So I had both available because I wasn't sure exactly how I would be feeling. I wanted the backup, the comfort of having both things available.
So did you have to transcribe any documents or read any foreign handwriting?
For my region, I did not have to do any foreign work. Of course, if you're doing a region like Germany, you will definitely have some translation. There is a transcription element, so you will want to make sure you know how to transcribe and abstract a document because those are really valuable skills. A professional genealogist has to know how to do that. So that is definitely part of the testing.
Great. So that level 2, how many hours did that take you to do the test?
Well, when I did it, it was 4 hours and it was divided up into, I think, 4 different sections. And they've adjusted the testing and changed it completely for that level 2, which I think is going to be a really good change. And so now it is 2 parts only, and each one is 2 hours. More details about this it's all on the ICAPGen website. It's called The Guide to Applying for a Credential. There's no secret. We're not trying to stump anybody here and have this be a secret process. Everything you need to know about the test is online. So the first section is document interpretation, where you'll be given documents and have to work with those documents. And then the second section is general questions. And that's going to be, all about your regions, the history, methodologies, what you need to know in order to research in your area. So I believe each of those is 2 hours.
That sounds doable. The last section, level 3, that does seem like it would be a pretty stressful test to go in there and do a whole project and finish up with a report. How did that go?
That was really stressful. And I will be honest, the very first time that I took it, I did not pass with 90%. I don't know what I passed with, or I did not pass. I don't know what my percentage was. And I had to retake that test, and I did pass the second time. I had come out of that exam feeling pretty confident, but when I got the feedback on it, I realized I had really made a few mistakes. It wasn't with the research, it had to do with my research planning and just not being careful enough with some of the little details that I needed to do. And so, with that final project where you're having to do a real research project, they give you a story problem or a pedigree problem, and you have to create an objective, do a research plan, do all the research using a log and source citations, and then write a report. But again, you get a rubric, and I thought I had prepared, but it was really good feedback for me to see what I had done wrong. And so when I did more practice exams, I would just take that rubric and go through it and make sure I had done everything. And I also had a checklist, so I wouldn't forget some of the things I forgot the first time. So I made the mistake the first time of trying to do too much research and then not having enough time to get it written up and to verify and make sure I had all the elements correct. So I learned my lesson and passed the second time. So I was grateful for the chance to redo. And I feel like I was really a better genealogist because of that. I learned some really good lessons.
That is a good lesson to learn, that you have to save enough time at the end of the project to write about it. I think that would be hard to do it in a timed format where you can't have any extra time to write the report. What would you recommend that I do? So I have not started my 4th-generation report. I've been working on getting hours of experience in my states. So what should I be doing?
As well as getting your hours of experience, you could just get started on your 1st generation. Have you figured out for sure your 4 generations, your 4 people that you'll be
I
using?
haven't decided. I made a list of all the possible people that I could use that are in the area, but I haven't done a lot of research on most of them. So I was kind of just working on various projects to get my experience. And then I don't know, I was going to see which ones looked like the most promising from there.
So you do want to make sure that you will have enough research that you can actually present it in a good manner. And what we're looking for rating the projects is that there are really good links for each generation. So this is not a project where you're going to put in all the details of your people's lives. We don't need to know all about their occupation and everything there is to know about them. We really are looking for the links to generations. So if you've got a 3rd to 4th generation and you don't have any vital records, like no birth certificates or death certificates, take a look at your evidence. Do you have a land record? Do you have probate? What do you have that's tying those 2 generations together, and how does that look? Because you're not going to want to choose someone that the evidence is just not really there. So pretty much my entire report was indirect evidence because I was in the South, and that's why it took me 40 pages, because I had a lot of indirect evidence to really discuss and use that to prove relationships. So just take a look and see if you've got your 4 generations and you feel good about the research.
Yeah, I didn't want to choose my 4 generations until I knew that I could have solid people in each one. So I'm still kind of deciding on that. But what can somebody do who has been working on their 4th-generation project, but they're not sure if they're ready to go and do a test like the level 3 test? How can they prepare for that, where you have to do a timed research project and write a report all while you're sitting there being tested?
Well, the thing that I think is important is to just tackle one step of this at a time. So I did preparation for level 1 and 2 kind of concurrently. I worked on my 4th-generation project, and at the same time I was working on my research reference guides so that I could be preparing for those questions and things in level 2. So I think those two can be worked on pretty well together. But then once you're finally through those hurdles, you're going to learn so much doing the 4th-generation project that's going to help you for that final project, that 4-hour test. So don't worry about preparing for that until you've passed everything else, because by the time you're to that point, you're going to have done a lot to prepare. You're going to be ready. And then when that's facing you, the 4-hour test, that's when you really go to work and you do a lot of practice projects. I probably did at least 5 or 6 practice projects. So if you're wanting to get some hours in some of your states, like I had the state of Florida, which I didn't have any family in and I'd never researched. So I actually did some practice projects in Florida to get my hours. So I did that before I'd passed anything. And I just picked a person off the census in one of the Florida censuses and did, at that time it was 3 hours, just did 3 hours of research and tried to do the entire project. So practicing is going to help you the most, over and over and over, doing little practice projects.
That's good. I can see how practicing at home where it's not as stressful would help you prepare, get more used to the idea, setting a timer and trying to get it done in the time allotted.
Right. And another really good thing, since you said at home, I really recommend at least once going somewhere else and doing the test, not on your own computer, because that can throw you off. We get so used to our own setups. So go to the library, go to the family history library if you'll be testing there, and try just doing a test. Do a practice project somewhere out of your comfort zone. And that's helpful also.
So kind of my last question then is, after you finished all of your testing and you passed everything and became an accredited genealogist, how do you keep your saw sharpened?
I still try to do a lot of education. I do a lot of reading. I get the quarterly, the National Genealogical Society quarterly, and I study that to see methodologies that other people are using. I watch webinars for my region of interest as well as other states, because I do a lot in other southern states as well as my Gulf South states. I try to just keep learning as much as I can. And then, quite honestly, the best way that I keep my saw sharpened is doing client projects. Because again, I have a time limit. I only have 10 hours or 20 hours, and I'm doing projects that I don't know anything about. There's not my family. I have to work really quickly. I have to work really efficiently. And that helps me the most. Just, every day doing the research and writing and going through the process has been really great to just continue learning.
Well, great. I'm excited to continue the process of accreditation and keep on asking you all my questions when I get stuck. Thanks for helping and sharing your ideas with me and with everyone else listening.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of end with the thought that it may seem like a ton of work, and it did take me 2 years to do it, but oh my goodness, I learned so much and I'm so much better at researching. It just made a huge difference in what I can do, and I'm excited now to go tackle all of my own brick walls, even though I'm mainly working on my clients' brick walls. But I feel like I have the skills now that I need, and that's exactly what I wanted. So it was very worth it.
Well, great. Thank you. And to our listeners, if you're interested in practicing how to do the process of making a research plan and writing a report, then check out our eCourse. Like we said, it's on sale today for only $69, and it's a good way to practice these skills that you would need for accreditation. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, familylocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.